Right now, you're sitting somewhere with walls around you, a bedtime you'll probably ignore, and a schedule waiting on your phone for tomorrow. Somewhere over open water right now, an Arctic tern is mid-migration. No calendar, no rent, no boss checking in. Just 70,000 kilometers of open sky it will fly this year alone. It never asked permission to leave. You, on the other hand, need a passport for a new country and paid time off for a weekend. The bird just goes. So who's really living the freer life? The animal with no calendar, or the human who invented one? That's the question hiding under every caption about animals living their best life. Start with sleep, because it's the most basic freedom there is. The freedom to rest when your body says so, not when a device tells you to. In 2015, sleep researcher Jerome Siegel at UCLA fitted wrist monitors on the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, and the Tissamane of Bolivia, 3 societies with no electricity, no clocks, and no Wi-Fi. The result? They slept around 5 hours a night on average. Not more than modern humans. Less, but they almost never used an alarm. Insomnia as we know it barely showed up in the data. Their bodies drifted to sleep and woke up in sync with the actual drop in nighttime temperature, not a 7 a.m. buzzer. The freedom was never about getting more sleep, it was about choosing when. So what about work? Surely that's where modern life wins. Here's where it gets strange. In the 1960s, anthropologist Richard Lees spent months tracking exactly how the Juhuensi of the Kalahari Desert spent their time. His count, roughly 15 hours a week gathering and hunting to feed a family. Not 40. When anthropologist Marshall Solins published Lee's numbers in 1972, he called hunter-gatherers the original affluent society, not because they had more stuff, but because they wanted less and got it faster. Compare that to labor surveys today, which put the average full-time work week closer to 40 to 47 hours before the commute even starts. Everyone assumes primitive meant a constant grinding fight for survival. The truth is closer to the opposite. For most of human history, the people with the least technology had the most spare time. The grind is the recent invention here, not the ancient one. But animals aren't automatically free either. It depends entirely on the cage. In 2003, biologists Ross Clubb and Georgia Mason at Oxford analyzed welfare data on 35 carnivore species held in zoos worldwide. Their findings surprised even them. Enclosure size barely predicted stress. What predicted it was how far that species roams in the wild. Polar bears, which travel tens of kilometers a day chasing sea ice, paced obsessively in captivity and showed higher infant mortality than species like leopards, which naturally range less ground. A fenced yard doesn't make an animal free. It just builds a smaller version of the need that animal was already born with. So does that mean the wild is where real freedom lives? Not exactly. Everyone assumes wild automatically means free. The truth is, wild animals spend most of their energy just avoiding being eaten. Freedom out there is also a full-time job, and the job has a mortality rate attached. Take that Arctic tern from the opening. In 2010, biologist Karsten Eggevang and his team at the Greenland Institute of Natural Resources tagged the birds with geolocators barely bigger than a grain of rice. The tracking data showed some individuals flying more than 70,000 kilometers in a single year, chasing endless summer between the Arctic and Antarctic, roughly 2 trips around the planet, on wings that weigh less than a phone. But every one of those kilometers gets spent dodging storms, predators, and starvation. The tern isn't free from struggle, it's just never told where to be. So maybe the question was wrong from the start. It was never animals versus humans, or wild versus captive. It's autonomy versus schedule. The Hadza had less technology, but more say over their own hours. The polar bear had more space, but no say over its own wiring. The tern has the entire sky, plus a body that has to fight for every mile of it. Freedom was never about the size of the world you're allowed into. It was always about who gets to decide what happens inside it. Picture that tern again, somewhere over open water right now. Still flying, still deciding. One wing beat at a time. You, meanwhile, are exactly where you started. Walls around you, a schedule on your phone, a bedtime you'll ignore anyway. The bird never had to build a world that let it rest when it needed to. You did. And then you filled it with alarms. Maybe the real cage was never made of bars or fences. Maybe it was made of clocks.